As the Navy officer, I'd navigated some of the most treacherous waters, both at sea and in life. I was trained to protect, to serve, to shield my loved ones from harm, but nothing could have prepared me for the one betrayal that would shatter everything I believed in. It wasn't the enemies I fought in distant lands that I had to fear. It was her, my wife, the woman I trusted with my life. The air was thick with the scent of salt water as I stood in the deck of the USS Colossus, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The endless ocean stretched out before me, vast, unyielding, but peaceful. It was moments like these, with the wind in my hair and the gentle rocking of the ship, that made me feel like I had everything under control. I was a Navy officer, trained for combat, strategic decisions, and high-stakes missions. But even the greatest warriors can't predict when their most dangerous battle will come. That night, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach, but I brushed it off. It was probably just the pressure of being away from home for so long. The deployment had already stretched into 6 months, and I missed my wife, Claire, terribly. Every letter, every call we shared was a lifeline. The thought of coming home and holding her in my arms was the only thing keeping me going. I was about to hit back to my quarters when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out quickly, eager to hear her voice. "Hey, babe," I said into the receiver.
"Hey, love, how's everything?" Claire's voice was soothing, as always, but there was something different about it. A slight edge. "It's good. Same old, you know how it is. How are you doing?" I leaned against the metal railing, the wind whipping around me, making the conversation harder to hear. "I'm fine," she replied, but I could tell she wasn't being entirely honest. I had learned to read her over the years, to pick up on the subtle changes in her tone, the little things she didn't say out loud. Something was off. Just a little only, you know? "I miss you too, Claire. Only a few more weeks and I'll be home. We'll make up for all this time apart." There was a silence on the other end for a moment. Then she sighed. "I just wish you were here, Mark." "I know. I'll be there soon. We'll figure it all out, I promise." My hand gripped the phone tighter, as if to hold on to the words I was saying. I meant them, but there was an unease creeping in, something I couldn't shake. It felt like a warning. We talked for a few more minutes, but the conversation soon ended with her saying she'd call again the next day. As I tucked the phone back into my pocket, I couldn't help but feel like I had missed something important. Something wasn't right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. It wasn't until I was back on solid ground that the true extent of that feeling came crashing down on me. The days following my return home were a whirlwind. I'd flown in early from base, surprising Claire. She hadn't expected me until the weekend, and the look on her face when I walked through the door was priceless. Her eyes wide, lips parted in disbelief, followed by a burst of laughter in the warmest embrace. It felt good to be home. She was everything I had missed. Her soft touch, her laughter, the way she always knew how to calm me with just a few words. For a brief moment, I felt the weight of my career as a Navy officer lift from my shoulders. Home was where I belonged. But things quickly shifted. That night, as we shared a simple dinner at home, the tension from our phone call weeks before seemed to still hang in the air. Claire was distant, distracted, her responses less enthusiastic than I'd remembered. I tried to brush it off, attributing it to the stress of my long absence. "Hey, you okay?" I asked, breaking the silence. She looked up, almost startled, as if she had been lost in her thoughts. "Yeah, just tired, with everything that's been going on." I nodded. I had seen that look before, like something was buried just beneath the surface, something she wasn't telling me. But I knew better than to press. We finished dinner in relative silence, and I retreated to the living room to catch up on some of the news. I glanced over at Claire a few times, but each time I saw her eyes darting away, avoiding my gaze. The woman I had married, the woman I trusted above all others, seemed like a stranger in that moment. Later that evening, Claire suggested we go out for a drink, just the two of us, to reconnect. I agreed, happy for the chance to unwind. After months of being away, I needed this time with her. As we walked into the small local bar, I was greeted by the familiar sights of laughter and clinking glasses. The place was lively, filled with the sounds of people catching up, sharing stories. We found a quiet corner and ordered our drinks. "I've missed this," Claire said, her smile barely reaching her eyes. She sipped her wine, her hand resting on her glass as if to hold it steady. She seemed different, though, more guarded. more distant. I tried to make small talk, asking about her job, her friends, the things we used to talk about when I was home. But she seemed preoccupied, lost in her own thoughts. Then something unusual happened. She stood up suddenly, excusing herself to the restroom. I nodded, watching her walk away. The moment she disappeared into the crowd, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. My heart skipped a beat when I saw the message. "We need to talk. It's about Claire." I stared at the words, my pulse racing. My mind immediately jumped to the worst possibilities, but I quickly dismissed them. I trusted Claire, or at least I thought I did. As the minutes ticked by and Claire still hadn't returned, I felt the ground beneath me shift. I knew something was wrong. The message seemed like a warning, a whisper from the darkness, and I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went. The seconds seemed to stretch into eternity as I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the screen. The unknown number had sent it just as Claire had excused herself to the restroom, leaving me alone in the bar with the faint hum of chatter in the background. My mind raced, 1,000 possibilities flooding my thoughts. Was someone trying to manipulate me? Or was there some truth to what the message suggested? I quickly replied with a single, terse question. "Who is this?" I leaned back in my chair, trying to appear calm, but a storm was brewing inside me. I had spent years dealing with uncertainty in the Navy, missions where danger lurked at every corner, but nothing in my training could have prepared me for the treacherous waters of my own marriage. Was this some kind of cruel joke, or had I overlooked something that had been right in front of me all along? Minutes passed before the response came, this time in the form of a short and direct message. "I can't say too much, but you need to know the truth about Claire. She's been lying to you." I felt my stomach churn. The words seemed to punch through the facade of normalcy I had clung to so tightly in the last few months. I glanced around the bar, suddenly hyper-aware of every movement, every shadow. But there was nothing, no one suspicious. Just the same background noise of life carrying on as usual. Then another message popped up. "Meet me at the park, midnight. Don't tell her." I read the message, feeling my pulse quicken. The request was simple, but the implications were far more complicated. Who was this person? And why were they so insistent that I keep this from Claire? My instincts as a Navy officer screamed at me to be cautious, to avoid rushing into something without understanding the full picture. But the pieces of the puzzle were already beginning to form in my mind, and I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling that I was missing something. A soft tap on my shoulder interrupted my thoughts, and I looked up to find Claire standing there, her expression uncertain. "Mark, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the noise of the bar. I quickly shoved my phone into my pocket, trying to mask the tension I felt. "Nothing," I replied, too quickly, too curtly. "Just thinking." She studied me for a moment, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Are you sure? You've been distant since we got here." I forced a smile, though it didn't reach my eyes. "I'm just tired, I guess. Long day." Claire seemed to accept that, though I could see a flicker of doubt in her eyes. She sat down across from me, her gaze never quite meeting mine. For the first time in years, I noticed how much distance there seemed to be between us. The spark we had shared, the connection that had once felt so undeniable, was now reduced to a flickering flame in a room full of shadows. "I think we should head home," I suggested, trying to push aside the uneasy feeling that had settled over me. "Yeah, I think you're right," she said softly. "I just wanted to spend some time with you, Mark." I nodded, but my mind was already elsewhere. As we left the bar and walked toward the car, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that something dark and hidden was slowly being dragged into the light. And no matter how much I tried to ignore it, I couldn't escape the growing suspicion that Claire was at the center of it all. When we got home, Claire went straight to the kitchen to prepare some coffee, her movements slow and mechanical. I stood by the door, staring at the message again. I needed to know the truth. I needed to meet whoever had sent that cryptic warning. But something in me hesitated. This wasn't just some random tip-off. Whoever had sent the message knew something about Claire, and I needed to find out what.
Mark? Claire's voice broke through my thoughts, and I looked up to see her standing in the doorway, holding 2 mugs of coffee. You've been quiet since we left. Is everything okay? Yeah, I replied, taking the mug from her hand. Just a lot on my mind. You know how it is. She nodded, but I could see the hesitation in her eyes. Claire wasn't the kind of person who asked about my work unless she was genuinely concerned. This was different. She seemed to be studying me, looking for something, a crack in my composure. I sipped the coffee, the warmth doing little to calm the storm brewing inside me. My mind was a swirl of confusion, doubt, and questions. I knew I needed to go to that park to find out who had reached out to me and what they knew. But I also knew that if I told Claire where I was going, it would only raise more questions, questions I wasn't ready to answer. Claire, I said, setting my mug down, I need to take care of something. I won't be long. She raised an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. What is it? Something about work? I hesitated, unsure of what to say. My instincts told me to keep her in the dark, to protect her from whatever I was about to uncover. But was that the right choice? Was I just prolonging the inevitable? Yeah, I lied. Work stuff. She didn't press further, but I saw the flicker of disappointment in her eyes. She wanted me to be here, with her. I wanted that too, but something had shifted, something had broken, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the edge of discovering something that would change everything. The park was quiet, bathed in the cool glow of the streetlights. I walked along the empty path, my boots crunching on the gravel as I scanned the surroundings. There was no one in sight. I checked my watch, 11:50 p.m., 10 more minutes. I kept walking, trying to calm my racing heart. The message was clear. Meet at midnight. Don't tell Claire. But why? What could they possibly want from me? And why had they been so insistent that I keep this from her? I reached the old wooden bench near the fountain, the place where I had agreed to meet the mysterious informant. The wind rustled through the trees, but otherwise, everything was still, silent. I sat down, glancing over my shoulder every few seconds, but there was no one, not a soul. The minutes dragged on, and the clock on my watch ticked past midnight. Then a figure stepped out of the shadows, moving toward me with purpose. It was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark jacket that blended seamlessly into the night. He approached slowly, his footsteps deliberate, and for a moment I felt a wave of unease wash over me. He stopped a few feet away, keeping his distance. "Mark," he said, his voice low but steady. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice tight with suspicion. He smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Someone who knows more about your wife than you think." I stood up, ready to take control of the situation. "What do you know about Claire?" I asked, my hand instinctively moving toward the pocket where I kept my phone. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "It's not about what I know, Mark. It's about what she's been hiding from you." His eyes gleamed in the dim light as he took a step closer. "And trust me, it's worse than you can imagine." The words hung in the air between us, thick with the weight of an unspeakable truth. My stomach twisted, and the feeling that had been gnawing at me for weeks now settled into a cold certainty. I had been blind, and the storm that was about to hit would destroy everything I thought I knew. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "What do you want from me?" His lips curled into a smile, but there was nothing warm in it. "I'm not here to ask for anything, Mark. I'm here to make sure you know the truth, the whole truth." The world seemed to go quiet as he spoke those words, and I realized with a sinking feeling that the man before me wasn't just some stranger. He knew far too much. And now, so did I. I stood frozen, my mind racing to process the words the man had just spoken. The whole truth? My heart pounded in my chest and a cold sweat trickled down my back. The darkness of the park seemed to press in on me, suffocating and oppressive. I had come here for answers, but now that I was face to face with someone who seemed to know far more than he should, I felt more lost than ever. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded again, my voice barely above a whisper. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel my pulse quicken as I struggled to maintain control over the situation. This wasn't just some informant with a tip. This man knew something that threatened to tear apart the life I had built with Claire. The man took a step forward, his eyes locked onto mine. "The name's Peter," he said, his voice steady and unwavering. "I've been keeping an eye on things for a while now, and believe me, Mark, you don't want to find out what's really going on." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. "What's going on?" I demanded, my patience wearing thin. "Why the hell are you here, and what does Claire have anything to do with any of this?" Peter's gaze softened slightly, though it still carried an air of cold certainty. "It's not that simple," he said, his eyes narrowing. "What I'm about to tell you could ruin your entire life." I clenched my fists, the weight of his words settling over me like a dark cloud. Everything inside me screamed to walk away, to ignore this mysterious figure, and keep the life I had with Claire intact. But deep down, I knew that the storm had already begun, and no matter how hard I tried to avoid it, I was already caught in its path. Peter took another step forward, pulling something from the inside of his jacket, a small envelope. He held it out to me, but I didn't take it immediately. My eyes narrowed. I didn't trust him, not one bit, but I needed the truth. I needed to know what was really going on. "What's in the envelope?" I asked cautiously. Peter didn't speak immediately. Instead, he glanced over his shoulder, as if checking for anyone who might be watching us in the shadows. After a tense moment, he extended the envelope toward me. "Proof," he said simply. I reached out, my fingers brushing the envelope. As I took it from him, I felt a chill run down my spine. There was something about the way he was acting, like he knew this was the beginning of the end. Whatever was in that envelope, I didn't think I was ready for it. With a deep breath, I tore open the seal and pulled out a set of photographs. The images were grainy, taken from a distance, but they were unmistakable. In one photo, Claire was standing with a man, one I didn't recognize, outside a cafe in the city. They were laughing, too close, too intimate. In another, they were leaving the cafe together, her hand resting lightly on his arm. I stared at the photos, my mind struggling to make sense of what I was seeing. The man in the pictures was tall, with dark hair and a rugged look. The kind of man who didn't belong in Claire's world, or at least that's what I thought. Peter's voice broke through my thoughts. "That man is someone you need to know about. His name is Jonathan, and he's been seeing your wife for months now, behind your back." The words hit me like a sucker punch. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My stomach turned over, and I felt like the world was spinning around me. Claire, my wife, the woman I'd trusted above all others, had been hiding something this dark from me? How long had I been going on? Was everything I had known a lie? Peter didn't give me time to process my shock. "I didn't want to be the one to tell you this," he continued, his voice flat, "but I've been watching this whole thing unfold, and I know you deserve the truth." I shook my head in disbelief, my grip tightening on the envelope, as if it might somehow provide the answers I was searching for. But all it gave me was pain. Why? Why would Claire do this to me? Why would she? Peter interrupted me. "You need to understand something, Mark. She's not the person you think she is. She's been living a double life, and you've been the last to know. Jonathan has been manipulating her, pulling her strings, and now she's in too deep to get out." My hands trembled as I stared at the photos, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me with crushing force. I'd spent years in the Navy, facing down enemies who wanted to destroy me. But this was different. This wasn't an enemy I could fight with tactics or weapons. This was the person I loved. This was someone I had trusted implicitly, and now everything was shattered. "Is it true?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Is she really seeing him behind my back?" Peter nodded, his expression grim. "Yes, she's been meeting him for months now, and it's not just some fling. This is serious, Mark. She's in love with him." I felt my chest constrict. The pain was almost unbearable. I wanted to lash out, to yell, to demand answers from Claire, but I couldn't move. I was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by the weight of the truth. The woman I had spent my life with, the woman I had trusted with everything, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. The anger started to build inside me, a fire that threatened to consume me. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked again, my voice low, barely controlled. "What do you want from me?" Peter's eyes softened, though there was still an edge to his words. "I'm not here for your money, Mark. I'm not here to make you do anything, but I want you to understand the gravity of the situation. You can confront her, but I'm warning you, it won't be easy. She'll lie, she'll deny it, but if you dig deep enough, you'll find the truth. And when you do, it will destroy everything." I took a step back, my mind spinning. The idea of confronting Claire, of tearing apart the life we had built together, felt like an impossible task. But I knew what I had to do. I couldn't live with this deception any longer. I needed answers. I needed to hear it from her own lips. With trembling hands, I shoved the photos back into the envelope and stuffed it into my jacket pocket. I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next, but there was no turning back.
The storm was here, and I had to face it head on. "Do you know where she is?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Peter nodded. "She'll be at home. She doesn't know I'm the one who sent you the message, but she'll expect you to be confused, maybe even angry. Just don't let her manipulate you, Mark. This is your chance to find out everything." I nodded, though I could barely hear his words over the pounding in my head. I turned and started to walk away, my footsteps slow and deliberate. Each step felt like a betrayal in itself, like I was leaving behind a part of myself that I would never get back. But I knew I had no choice. When I arrived home, the house was quiet. The lights were dimmed, casting long shadows across the living room. Claire was sitting on the couch, her back to me. She hadn't heard me come in. For a moment, I just stood there, watching her. She looked so peaceful, so unaware of the storm that was about to hit. The woman who had once been my everything was now a stranger to me. I couldn't recognize her anymore. "Claire?" I said, my voice raw. She turned around, startled by the tone of my voice. "Mark, what's wrong?" she asked, her eyes wide with concern. But I saw it, the flicker of guilt in her eyes, the way she averted her gaze for just a second too long. She was lying, and she knew it. I took a step forward, my hands clenched at my sides. "I know what you've been doing, Claire," I said, my voice steady, though it trembled with the weight of the truth. "I know about Jonathan." Her face drained of color, and for a moment she just stared at me, her lips parted in shock. I watched as the guilt melted into fear, and then something worse, defensiveness. "Mark, she began, but I held up a hand, silencing her. "You don't need to say anything. I know everything. You can lie to me, you can deny it, but I've seen the proof." I stepped closer, my eyes never leaving hers. "And I'm done." The words hung in the air between us, and for the first time in years, I saw the woman I had loved as a complete stranger. She wasn't the person I had married. She was someone else, someone who had deceived me in ways I couldn't even begin to understand. And now, it was over.